All right. We are live and we welcome you all to this Thursday night's edition of the Live Well here in the Fish North Georgia studios. Danny is in Michigan, so I'll be hosting again tonight. Paul is on his way. I'm going to be sitting back here behind the camera here, behind the computer for a little while. I got Kevin Underwood in the house with me tonight. Lipsticker fishing himself. He's going to be in here. We're going to have ourselves a good time here tonight. We're going to talk a lot of information for sure. Of course, the title of this show is all about the Thermocline and fall fishing. And kind of, Kevin and I are going to try to cut some corners for you guys on the transition of the Thermocline turning over and the lakes turning over. So it can be a tough time of year. But before we get into that, we've got a lot of business tonight to take care of. And first and foremost, as always, we want to give a shout out to our title sponsor, Adams Renovations. Adams Renovations, Charlie Adams. He is a fisherman just like us. He will do everything from home remodels to new painting, decking, fencing, bathroom remodels, you name it. He will do it. He'll do everything but a spiral staircase, as the joke is. Give him a call at 470-505-3412 or email him at adamsrenovations20@gmail.com. That's Charlie Adams with Adams Renovations. Charlie, we appreciate your support, and you guys need to hit him up here if you want a nice little outside deck area or some kind of fall hangout place this fall. Hit Charlie up. He'll get you took care of. And, of course, Festive Water Powersports, your North Georgia paddle sports shop right by Lake Lanier. That's right there off of 400 and 369. Nathan and Tim, they'll get you took care of from everything from new kayaks to accessories to rentals. They've got it all over there at Festive Water Paddle Sports right off of Highway 369. You can go visit them at www.festivewater.com and stop by. Tell them the guys at Fish North Georgia sent you. They'll take care of you for sure. So, with that being said, though, too, I already see some of the comments coming in, and it's good to see all you guys. And we got a few more announcements that we need to get took care of here. So another thing that we want to talk about here that is getting closer, and it's something that I think if you are, whether you're on Lake Lanier, Allatoona, or North Georgia, or anywhere, I think you should go do it. If you see scrolling across the bottom of the banner there, the Big Shanty Bassmasters 9th Annual Toys for Tots Bass Tournament will be held November 4th, 2023. The takeoff is at Victoria Ramp on Lake Allatoona. There will be a $3,000 prize for first place. So everyone come on out and support this kid's Christmas time thing. It's a really, really good thing. I mean, I don't know anybody who, shouldn't support this. So we might get out there and go fish it if we can. So, but just remember that's coming up here. You can register at the Dugout Bait and Tackle down in Marietta. So get on there, go on down there, get you some tackle, support the Dugout, and of course sign up for the Big Shanty Bassmasters Toys for Tots Bass Tournament November 4th. So we want to talk. We're wanting to make sure we get that. We missed that last week. So see all you guys coming in right here. And then the third and final thing here, I think it's on the third. It's the fourth thing. I think it's the fourth thing. I got to get it out of my pocket. ABA Division 125 starts this Saturday, okay? This Saturday. This tournament this Saturday is the first one of the year, all right? It is going out of Galt's Ferry, all right? The rest of the ones that'll be held on Allatoona, of course, the schedule changes as it goes, throughout the year. They go back and forth between different lakes up here in the North Georgia area. This will be the only one that'll be going out of Galt, so you need to pay attention to that if you're going to show up. You can show up and pay at the ramp this Saturday, and it is let me get my little picture here with what I've got. Let's see. The membership fee for ABA is 1 year. It's a $35 membership fee. $70 entry fee the tournament, and $5 is your big fish each tournament. So come in, sign up. The ABA guys, whether you are a co-angler or a boater, come out, come fish the ABA. We have a grand time. We have a lot of fun with it, and all the guys, it's real good fellowship and camaraderie. Is the ABA 125, and of course Fish North Georgia, we sponsor them as well as many other great sponsors that they have. They have raffle tickets at the end of every single raffle prizes at the end of every single tournament. So bring some side money, and you can win some good stuff. They got all kinds of different things there. Spro's stepped up, and Gamakatsu has stepped up and made some major contributions, as well as some of the other sponsors. Robert Lear, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram over there in Cartersville, I believe is where it's at. You can go in there, you can tell them you are an ABA member, and they'll hook you up with a new vehicle. There's several other sponsors, but make sure you go over to the ABA 125 Division 125 Facebook page and follow that page. And Dane and Alex and Jonathan Farmer and all of them, they do one fantastic job at managing the page, and they do really, really, really well run tournaments. So highly suggest you guys get out there and go support them. So with that being said, that's pretty much about all the business that we have to take care of for tonight. And we're going to get ready to talk. Paul is on his way. He's running a little bit late. So for a little while, I'm going to be sitting behind right here, running the camera, reading the comments, and running the computer for you guys. So without further ado, we're going to talk about as Kevin would say, he says one of the most controversial topics in terms of the biology of a lake, and that is the thermocline. The thermocline is something that seems like a lot of guys understand, a lot of guys don't understand. It seems like more guys don't understand it than guys that do understand it. So, Kevin, we'll just start it off right here. You want to give your kind of talk about your best explanation in your terms of what the thermocline is. So go ahead.
So your thermocline, that's where the water layers when it gets hot in the summertime. So your upper layer, it's going to get really hot. The water's going to separate. It's going to make a layer. Your cooler water is going to be on the bottom. It's more denser. Your warmer water is going to get on the top, and you'll have the bottom layer of water will just be a dead layer of water eventually. Once it's set up for a little while, the oxygen will get depleted, and then throughout the summer it'll just be a dead stagnant layer of water. In a nutshell, that's basically what it is. I know. You can see it on your graphs. It's pretty easy to find on your graphs. I like to kind of run my graphs on 455, and it penetrates the water better. You can see it a lot better. So when you go out there, first thing I'm looking for is if I'm in an area where there is a thermocline. So if there is a thermocline, I'm not really worried about anything below it, because it's just going to be dead water. So, really, that's kind of your dog, all the way through your dog days of summer, all the way up until the lake turns over. Really, you're going to have to deal with that thermocline, and you really need to know, different parts of the lake. You may have a thermocline. In another part of the lake, you may not have a thermocline. You may go back into a creek and it may only be 15 foot deep. Then you may go out on the main lake and it might be 30 feet deep. You really got to pay attention wherever you're at on the lake, where that's at, because wherever that's at, you really want to try to target fish that's above it. So, that hopefully that kind of gets us dove into it.
Well, there's your first question already right there, Kevin. It says, does the thermocline put fish on the move? That's from Facebook user. By the way, before you answer that question, those of you guys who are on Facebook and want to comment so we know who you are, go to www.streamyard/Facebook, register your name there so that way we can see who you are and we can put a name to the face of who is commenting for you guys on Facebook. We appreciate you watching. So go ahead, Kevin. Explain to me and all of us that's watching, does the thermocline put fish on the move?
So in my opinion, I wouldn't really say it really puts them on the move. It will position your fish so they don't want to be in that unoxygenated water. They can't be there. I've heard I've heard a few guys that striper fish. They talk about the stripers kind of regulating their body temperature, and they'll kind of dive down into that cold water, but they can't stay long. Um, and one of the guys was telling me that he thinks that's why a lot of the stripers have a hard time, is because they're slap wore out from that constant going up in the oxygenated water and then diving off into that cooler water to keep their body temps down. Which is a very, hey, I mean, that very well could be. I've never really caught any fish below a thermocline. I've never seen anybody catch any there. I mean, I've heard some people say that they have. I've never done it, and I've never seen anybody do it. So for me, I'm really not worried about that bottom layer. And like I said, to answer that question, like I was saying, I think it will kind of position your fish. So you got a thermocline. Let's just say it's at 30 feet. So any water below 30 feet, you could go right up to a point, and your point may drop off out there in 50 foot of water. I'm not really going to start looking for fish until I reach that 30-foot mark going up that point. So you got a brush pile there, right there on that 30-foot mark. That brush pile will probably be loaded with fish. They'll either be set up like that, or they'll be suspended. They can suspend out over that thermocline too. A lot of times you'll find an isolated group of fish are just out there like
no man's land.
What are they doing out here? They're on nothing. They're just sitting out there up on top of that thermocline. And that's hopefully that kind of answers that. As far as putting them on the move, like moving them to a different like a different area of the lake, I wouldn't really say it moves them. It just kind of makes them go higher up in the water column. If you say you got your thermocline set up and you're out deep water, you got some timber that kind of comes up above that thermocline. You'll have some fish positioned on that piece of timber when they want to sit on something, especially them ones that get out there and suspend sometimes. Sometimes they'll come and sit on a piece of timber like that, and you can catch those out there. So hopefully that answers that. I think
it does. So if we got another question right here from Jonathan Farmer. He says, what water temps do you see when the lake begins to flip? And of course, flipping, for those of you guys who may not know, the term is called flipping, but it is actually what happens is that thermocline destratifies, and it's a destratification of the water column. And it typically, when you don't really start seeing that start coming into play and start happening, and basically when the surface temperatures start dropping, and the surface temperatures start getting to a point to where that thermocline layer will start to widen out and it will raise. And Kevin has a really, really interesting story, if he wants to share it, about a particular guide trip that he was on. Was it last year?
Yeah,
last year,
no,
where he
2
was,
years ago,
or 2 years ago, where he had was on the water the day that the thermocline actually kind of pulled all the way up closer to the surface. So if you want to, go ahead and talk about that, Kevin, and what you've seen in terms of that with the water temperature, and then what the fish were actually doing that day, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we could do that. So that day, we started that morning out. And like I was saying, you can see your thermocline on your graph if you set it up. I like to use down scan to look at it. We started out that morning, and we got that hard line. It was like right at 15 foot across the surface. we come out of Bayless Creek that morning, and this was on Lanier. So we come out of Bayless Creek and all the way out the creek, all the way out to the main lake, even on past the creek mouth. That line was like right at 15 foot. And it seemed like every fish in the lake was sitting right on the surface. We started that day out. I mean, we was catching them really good. We were throwing top waters. We were throwing Sabills, some glide baits. And I mean, every place we pulled up to for like the first 2 hours, we was crushing them. And then just all of a sudden, fish quit biting. And I was like, And this was before live scope. I didn't have live scope or any kind of forward facing sonar then. We were just pulling up to places, running points, running humps, running stuff kind of around the mouths of pockets. And I'm really glad we had a good first 2 hours that day, because the rest of the day was horrible. And I didn't really catch on to it right away. And then, we sit back down, and I was driving. I turned the graph back on. I was looking at the graph, and that 15-foot line was gone. That line that we started out with that was at 15 foot, hey, that was gone. And I mean, the fish that was laying right on the surface, dude, we couldn't even hardly find a fish. There was just so much stuff. We out along graphing for probably about 30 minutes just trying to look for another area, trying to find, hey, well, we got into them real good first thing in the morning. Let's go see if we can find this again. Hey, we never could find it. We spun out bad for the rest of the day. That was probably one of the best learning experiences with a thermocline that you could possibly have. I've never seen it like that. That's the only time I've ever been on the water that happened. And being on the water a lot, you get to see a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stories, but that day is, as far as a thermocline goes, that was a very good learning experience, not just from a client, but for me too. It was interesting being able to see that. So,
yeah. So we got two more questions right here. We're going to go ahead and answer since we're sitting here talking about this. I think it relates to what happened to you that day. It says, will the thermocline concentrate bait in a certain area?
Above the thermocline.
Right.
So I actually got another story up on Hartwell here just a couple weeks ago. Some of y'all might have seen that ridiculously large catfish that I caught. So I wasn't looking to catch catfish where I caught this fish. We seen a big group of fish in the tops of some timbers. And when I saw them, I thought, man, them look like some big largemouths. I mean, that's how they were set up. I never would have thought that those would have been catfish. But there was walls and walls of these things sitting in the tops of some timbers in a channel swing area. There was a channel swing area that we were really kind of keying on, and we'd been catching a lot of bass around there. And then we kind of pulled out and looked out in the timber, and we see these big walls of fish out there. And I'm like, well, let's make a few casts over here. I think, them's going to be some good fish. Throw out there, hook one, and I mean, he broke me off like instantly. I'm like, wow, I don't know what that was. I said, I don't know what that was, but I'm retying. I'm going to catch one of those. And then the next one, I caught that one, and that was that catfish the size of a shark, dude. That thing was a giant. it may be the biggest cat I've ever caught. We've caught some big ones before, but that's probably one of the biggest ones I've caught. That thing was a giant.
Yeah, so for those
But
guys, you need to go over there. If you haven't seen it, go to Lipsticker Fishing's Facebook page, and you can find that picture of that catfish. So it was an absolute stud.
So that was a Thermocline deal. The reason those fish were there, and it wasn't just catfish that was there. Every fish in the lake was up above that Thermocline. Every bait fish, every fish, whether it's a bass, whether it's a catfish, whether it's a gar, carp, whatever, anything that has to have oxygen in the water, it's not going to go below that. It's going to be up above that. So, you know, and if catching a catfish don't prove it, I mean, just the way they were laying. I mean, you had the Thermocline, you had this piece of timber sticking up above that Thermocline, and then right here's your Thermocline, and then you had all of these fish up here in the tops of these trees, and I'm like, man, and they were catfish. That was catfish that was doing that. So, you know, if catfish are not below the Thermocline, I doubt very seriously you're going to find any other fish down there either.
Right. That should answer Jeremiah's question there. Jeremiah had a question, says right up there, that says, do you ever find fish just above the Thermocline or always well above it? You would typically find fish most of the time will either be right above the Thermocline all the way up to the surface. Am I correct in saying that in your experience?
I think so. I think, you know, in the dog days of summer, when the water temp on the surface is like bathtub water, you know, it'd be like 90 degrees on the surface. Of course, your fish are going to try to be as cool as they can be, so they're going to go to the deepest part to where they still have oxygenated water. You know, if you ever jumped off the boat or whatever and your toes kind of hit that cold layer of water, as you go down deeper, you know, it's going to get cooler. So, you know, they're going to go as deep as they can go. And then once they hit that unoxygenated water, that's like a bottom for them. That's like the bottom.
It's almost like the floor of the lake is basically, it's like a floor that the fish can't go through. And I think that's one thing that a lot of guys don't really fully understand and believe, really, is that once you go below the Thermocline, the oxygen level is absolutely terrible. Yes, the water is cooler, but the oxygen content in parts per million is really, really bad. And that's where you get a lot of like some of the the striper fishermen guys that talk about catching the stripers and stuff, that why they struggle too is because when they're fighting, they try to go as deep as they can to try to get away, and they go below that Thermocline and they're fighting in areas where there's not very good oxygen. So they're kind of fighting themselves and they're suffocating themselves. Am I correct in basically saying that? Is that your opinion?
I think so. I think some of them, I really don't think they're going to try to go down there, really.
Yeah, I don't think they do either. You see a lot of pictures of people's graphs and stuff where they have these spaghetti noodles, and it's right there, right above the Thermocline. It's almost like they hang out as close. The stripers will hang out as close to the Thermocline as they can without going below it. Am I right in saying that? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I think that's really with all fish, really. And you can have thermoclines in shallower fisheries too.
Oh yeah.
Anything that don't have the water moving enough to mix it. Like say for a river for example, you're not gonna have a thermocline in a river because the water's always moving, it's always mixing. But once that river water gets to a certain point into the lake, the surface of it starts to heat up, and as the water heats up on the surface, it's lighter, so it comes to the surface, and then the water that's on the bottom is colder, it's denser, so it stays on the bottom. So, that's really that hard line kind of can set up in anywhere you don't have any moving water, or it's not moving enough to mix it really. I know there's some lakes that pump water back and forth.
Carter's, Oconee,
Yeah.
Sinclair.
Now, I mean, I've seen some a Thermocline before in Oconee, but it's not very consistent, especially down the lake. It's not very consistent.
Justin Spieth asks, is there thermoclines in all the mountain reservoirs? No, there is not. Carter's is the big, ugly stepsister, I guess, as you could say, because they back pump and they pump out a certain amount of water every day. And that basically changes. When you have a dam that back pumps, it doesn't really allow for a thermocline to be able to set up because you got water that's coming back out that's pushing up. So the thermocline don't really set up in Carter's. Carter's is deep enough for sure to have a thermocline, but it just doesn't it doesn't really set up correctly. Chris Stubbs says the thermocline at Carter's changes every day. Yeah, it won't, like on Lanier and Hartwell, we have those situations where pretty much when the thermocline kind of sets up in about the 40-foot range, roughly somewhere in between there, and that's kind of where it always typically stays. The reason why, and I'm going to read this right here, the reason why is because I pulled a definition off of NOAA, the National Oceanographic Association. It says right here, the top layer above the thermocline is called the epipelagic zone. Okay. The thermocline, and this is the definition right here that I got wrote down. You can see it's kind of long. The thermocline is a transition layer between the warmer mixed water and the cooler deep water below it. It is easy to tell a thermocline in a body of water because of how hard the line is, and there's a certain change of temperature below that line. There is less oxygen, and it said that there is less oxygen below a thermocline. There is a thermocline that sets up in the ocean. And the thermocline and the ocean is what dictates basically hurricanes. So as we have hurricanes, all of us know that we have hurricanes that start forming in the south of the Gulf. Well, the thermocline in the ocean actually starts to rise, and that causes the temperature changes with the water. And as, of course, in the ocean, the water's evaporating and going up into the clouds, and it causes hurricanes to form because it's a drastic change in the weather and in moisture in the sky. So that is the definition from NOAA right there, exactly what a thermocline is. So that's their explanation. You can go look that up on NOAA. Paul's here. What's up, Paul?
Hello.
Paul's here. We're just having ourselves a chat with everybody who's joined in with us. So we're having good.
How about you give up the controls and go take the seat of honor there?
Oh yeah, I will. I definitely will right now. So I'm gonna let Paul take over this.
What's up, bud? How you?
And y'all say hi to Paul. Paul's here. We're gonna do a little switcheroo right here, and I'm gonna go around to the front, and Paul's gonna run the back.
And so it is. Good evening. Good evening. Let's take it back to the host with the most. Mr. Ryan Sheffield, are you ready on one?
I don't know about all that, but yeah, I think so.
Well, I'm hitting the button on one anyway.
Hit the button on one.
There you are.
Hit the button on one. I am here. All right, so cool. So the thermocline. Everybody, listen. Ryan Andrew Sheffield, you need to be a weatherman. No, I do not. I do not need to be a weatherman. Kevin can be a weatherman, but I don't need to be.
I lie like they can. I tell lies.
That's right.
Fishing got you a good start in it.
So yeah. So into what, now that I'm on this side of the table, I mean, you can kind of talk with these guys that are watching back and forth.
I couldn't see what you was doing.
Yeah, I know you couldn't see me, but you know what? We made it work. We made it work as best we can. So Thermocline. Yeah, that's right. Thermocline. Thermocline. If I'll tell you this, Patsy Cline. Yeah, Thermocline, Patsy Cline. I'll tell you this. Understanding, and I want Kevin to chime in on this whenever he's ready to. Understanding what thermoclines do to fish behavior and where fish live and where bait lives is very, very important, especially this time of year. It seems like this time of year, you know, the fish kind of live by the way of what the thermocline does. Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
I agree with that. I really think as soon as that thermocline starts to set up, really, you know, you really need to pay attention to that. If you got a thermocline, you need to be paying attention to that. You know, your fish are going to be above it. Nothing's going to be below it. Like I said, I've never caught anything below a thermocline. Now, you can probably find areas of the lake that don't have a thermocline.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why you really need to pay attention wherever you're at on the lake. You know, it starts north or it starts wherever the water comes in to the lake and kind of sets up and works its way down to wherever the water goes out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like on Lanier right now. There's places on Lanier where we don't have a thermocline.
Mm-hmm.
You can go down.
And you've talked about that all summer long,
Yeah,
where especially down around the dam, there just hasn't really been one set up,
I
really.
ain't sure about the dam. I haven't been down at the, like, all the way to the dam
Right.
lately. I know back in the creeks, like say, for example, back in Baldridge Creek, there was a thermocline set up back there, but it hadn't worked its way all the way out to the mouth of it yet. Same thing with Big Creek. You go back into Big Creek, there's a thermocline in the back of Big Creek, but it hasn't worked its way all the way out to the mouth of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you really want to focus on, if you are where there is a thermocline, above it. You know, that's going to be oxygenated water. If you're fishing in an area where there's not a thermocline, yeah, them fish can go where they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And go deep. You can watch, you know, especially with forward sonar, you can watch them fish come off a brush and just slide off the side of a hump and just go down into the timber, and you're like, where'd they go?
Right.
But when you got that thermocline, if they slide off of something, they're going to go out there and suspend.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just going to get lost in the trees. They're just going to be right out there. You could just follow with forward sonar. You could really just follow them fish around.
Yeah.
If you really wanted to. But them ones where you don't have a thermocline, you'll watch them fish. They'll go deep.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they'll go really deep.
Mm-hmm.
So,
how deep is really deep?
Oxygenated water, they can go however deep they want to go. The bass don't generally go as deep as them stripers will go. Them stripers, if you see some fish going like 60, 70 feet down there, more than likely them's probably going to be stripers.
Yeah.
But you bass, man, I've seen them recently going to 50, 55 feet deep. And I know they're bass because I've caught some of them deep.
Yeah. And you are, you know, you're a versatile fisherman. I mean, you can go up there and you can go fish in the dirt, and you can go out there and go use your electronics all day long if you so desire and catch fish. It doesn't really phase you on what you just fish for whatever fish you kind of want to fish for, whatever fish are biting.
I'm pretty comfortable doing either one. You know, really my favorite thing to do is to go shallow cranking. That's my favorite thing to do. I love it. There's nothing more fun than to take a crankbait like a DT6 and go throw that thing up there around rock, wood, and that's what I really enjoy doing. That and the glide baits. The glide baits is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like bite-sized herring type stuff, which those are starting to get bit a little bit now too.
Yeah.
Them start to
we seem to always have this jointed swim bait bite pick up really, really good, typically in September and October. But we had a couple questions. We were talking about, some guys have made some a couple comments. Ron Swinford up there, he mentioned that he's seen some bubbles in the right there. Seen some bubbles in the back of the pocket. It's on up just a little bit further, I think, is what it is, Paul. Right there. We noticed on tuna, well, he's seen some bubbles starting to come up in some shallow areas. I'll say this, and Kevin, you chime in whenever you want to. I get a lot of questions about bubbles and stuff in the backs of the creeks. I'm going to tell you something. All summer long, there are bubbles, pockets of bubbles and methane gas that get released in these lakes. And that's what you're seeing is those bubbles. Okay, little bit pockets of methane gas that have built up down on the bottom of the lake, and they have released themselves and they come all the way up to the surface. A lot of people seem to attribute that to the lake turning over. Yes, it does have a little bit with the lake turning over. But right now, it's still too hot with the water temperatures to see the lake actually begin to start turning over like what everyone is accustomed to doing. And Joey, we're going to get to your comment here in a second because he asked about where do the fish go. Do they go straight to the ditches after the turnover happens? And no, they do not. So we're going to talk about that here shortly about where the fish go. We're going to get into the fish talk here, but we're going to try to dive into this whole. We want you guys to understand as much as what we know and understand about the Thermocline. I've done a lot of research on the Thermocline, and I know Kevin has as well, because Kevin's livelihood depends upon, understanding the Thermocline on when they set up on lakes like Lanier, where he guides that every single day. So just because you see methane bubble gas does not mean that the lake's trying to flip. I've heard people say that the lake's trying to turn over in at 80-degree water temperature. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, the lake's not turning over in at 80 degrees.
So anytime, like, say, for example, if you hook a piece of wood back there or you hook a stump, you pull on that stump, it's going to release some bubbles.
Right.
I think them's kind of similar to the bubbles that they're seeing. They'll definitely be a lot of bubbles when the lake does turn over. But what you got to understand, for the lake to turn over, the surface layer has to become cooler than the bottom layer.
That's the key.
And until that happens, it's not going to turn over. And if you want to know, if you got any question whatsoever about is the lake starting to turn over, all you got to do is turn your graph on and idle across through there and look for that line. And when you see that line, you'll know, nope, it ain't turning over yet.
What kind of sensitivity do you use? Because we had a question about that right there with the is actually how do you see a Thermocline on these junky forward-facing sonars? But but in terms of finding the Thermocline, 2D is your friend, correct? You can see it on down imaging.
I like to look at it on down scan, really.
Yeah.
I put my down scan, I set it to 455, and I'll kind of crank my sensitivity up, and you'll see it. You'll see it on your down imaging. I have seen some graphs that had a hard time seeing a Thermocline, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if it was a power issue for the graphs or what was going on, the type of transducer or what it was. But I have been on somebody's boat where it was really hard to see the Thermocline. You could see a faint line, but we never could get that graph set to where you could really like on my graph. I mean, it's like it almost, you can get it to where it almost looks like a bottom.
Mm-hmm.
It'll almost look like a bottom. And when you turn the sensitivity up on it, you'll definitely see it. Yeah. So,
now, do y'all use just a direct temperature probe just to drop down and check temp and see where the break is ever?
I've never done that.
I've never done that either.
I think I'm gonna do that this year, just to see exact numbers on it. maybe even just getting a regular old mercury thermometer and tying it to the fishing line and the drop shot weight, just dropping it down there, letting it set for a little while, and then reeling it back up and seeing what the temp is on it. Because probably what the temp is on that thermometer, when that surface temp reaches that temperature, that's probably when you're gonna get that mix. And I don't know the exact temperature of what the water is down there on the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that water down there is denser than the water on the surface,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it is layered.
Yeah.
That's why it's layered in the first place.
Yeah. And that's typically kind of Ty Patterson said the DNR website has a good article on like near turnover facts. Here's my kind of, and this is just my Bible for me. I typically don't see turnover start really happening really good until we get water temperatures below 75 degrees. That's once we get below across the spectrum, we get below 75, mid to low 70s. That's when we'll start actually physically seeing that thermocline start to destratify, and you'll see it start, and you'll start to see it get wider. And in the instance with what Kevin was talking about earlier 2 years ago, when he was talking about earlier with the day with his client, when they were just catching them on top waters and Sebilles and everything, and then all of a sudden they couldn't find it no more, and it was like dead. Y'all didn't even know what the heck to do anymore.
Fish were scattered.
And that is what we're going to lead into. This is what we're going to talk about here in a minute, is about what happens when the actual turnover starts and when it gets going real good, when you can actually go out there and physically tell that the lake is actually turning over. No matter what lake you fish, if it has a thermocline that's set up, then 1,000% the fish scatter.
Yes.
And they do a lot of different things. You've got populations of fish that stay deep. You got populations of fish that go shallow. You got populations of fish that'll get out there just in the middle of the creeks, and they'll be related to absolutely nothing, but they'll be 5 feet below the surface, and they just roam.
Or 90.
or 90, and they just roam. So,
yeah.
But we're going to talk about that here in just a few moments. But the things are, if you run, so I mean, it's like this though, and I can contribute to this. I say this, depending upon what graph system you run, Lowrance always seems to read warmer. Now, whether you go with what's warmer or not, that's up to you. That's your personal preference. I know you don't run Lowrance graphs. You run Garmin's, and you still got a Humminbird.
Yeah.
So, in terms of that, you see, with Lowrance, the water temperatures seem higher when it's compared to Humminbird and compared to Garmin. I think Garmin reads the coolest of them for some reason. Now, I think it's personal preference or personal opinion based upon what the actual water temperature is, based upon your graph. What do you believe? Do you believe Lowrance? Do you believe Humminbird? Do you believe Garmin?
Yeah, I know my Humminbirds and my Garmin's read different temperatures all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The Humminbird will be reading mid-70s, and the Garmin will be 71, 72.
Right.
So which one is actually accurate? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
that's why I say I think it's left up to your interpretation on what you want to ride with,
I'm sure they're probably both pretty within a few degrees.
Yeah.
They're probably within a few degrees.
Yeah.
But without actually taking a temperature probe that's been certified to whatever.
To test water.
To test it, that just gets me, close. But I mean, still, there's a lot of other indicators that you'll have that the lake's turning over, other than just looking at your graphs. One being, you'll smell it, unless you got COVID. You'll smell it. It'll smell kind of like a rotten smell. You got this dead, stagnant layer of water coming to the surface, mixing with the good water. So everything, all them dead bait fish, all the fish crap just sinking down to the bottom into that lower layer. That's all going to come to the surface when it mixes. And I'm sure, there'll be people concerned about water quality or whatever. Hey, the lake stinks. I don't want to drink this stuff, or whatever. Something's going on with the
ghosts.
lake.
That's what ghosts smell
Is that
like.
what that is? Smell of
That's what
ghosts.
them ain't smell like.
That's what the ghosts smell like. They smell like rot.
Hey, have y'all watched not to be off subject, but have y'all watched the Lanier movie yet?
I have not watched it yet. Have you?
I did watch it.
You did watch it.
I watched it.
All right.
I almost finished it to the end, and then I fell asleep, and I let
Kept you riveted.
Fell asleep. Is the
Yeah,
acting that bad?
I didn't even try to finish it. I'm sorry. I'm just like, I was like, when I heard they were making a movie about Lanier, I was like, man, that's gonna be cool. They're gonna make the movie about a lot of stuff. There's so much there that they could have made a movie about, and it's just based around the Oscarville thing. And I mean, that's interesting, but I mean, it's basically just a horror movie.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's a horror movie.
Is it a good horror movie or is it a poorly put together horror movie?
I don't think it's that good. I don't want to talk about nobody's movie, but I did not really.
All right, so there you go from
You
Kevin.
wasn't scared.
That he wasn't scared. He wasn't scared because he fell asleep.
I don't know
Kevin,
what Siskel and Ebert.
Sylvia
say,
was
but
over
I'm
there
kinda-
patting you. Sylvia was over there nudging you. Did you see that?
Sylvia didn't watch
oh,
it.
she didn't watch it.
Sylvia
Oh.
was like, "Oh, the Lanier movie." Good night.
Oh, the Lanier movie? Good night. I'm going to bed.
She watched like until it got like gruesome.
Oh, so there's blood and gore in it.
Yeah.
How long is it?
I think it was like an hour and 15 minutes.
Are you serious?
I think it was like an hour.
An hour and 15 minutes?
I think I made it like
40 minutes
I
into
think I
it.
made it like maybe 50 minutes.
Oh, so you missed.
I was
the end.
determined to watch it because I spent the money to rent it. Okay,
How much was it to rent?
it's like $3.99.
Oh my
Vimeo,
God, $3.99.
Vimeo or whatever.
They're making money off of
I
this
think you
Lanier
could
movie.
buy it for $11.99 or $12.99.
That's about $8.99 too much.
Oh, I don't know. It's that.
I was really disappointed with it.
I kind of had
You
a
heard it
pretty.
here first, folks. Fish North Georgia's first ever film review, courtesy of Kevin Underwood.
There you go.
Lip sticker
lip sticker watches.
Lip
That's
sticker
what it
watches.
is.
There we go.
They sell lip sticker fishing and lip sticker watches. That's what it needs to be. So I don't know if anyone else I know who asked that question. So Rotten Tomatoes, yeah, we'll call them rotten. I don't know. We'll call them rotten worms. That's what we'll be. Instead of Rotten Tomatoes, we'll call them rotten worms. That'll be our movie reviews. But I don't know. Real quick though, I want to hit Matt O'Connell fishing up. He asked a question up earlier about what sauce I liked, and I like that. I like that triple gold pretty good right now, and it's pretty good sauce. I like it, and I ordered some. Some of you guys probably saw my Facebook post. I did order some, and he sent me some extra stuff to go along with it. I got about every single seasoning, and we used the seasoning this past weekend, the steakhouse seasoning on some burgers, and I'm gonna tell you right now, it's really, really good. So I highly suggest you try some. It's really, really good. So Kevin rates it 2 underspins down.
Daggum right.
That's pretty good.
Everybody thinks I throw a underspin all the time. What is this?
Well, it's right in the name, isn't it?
It's like they changed my name. And
Well, that
everything.
is your nickname, is Kevin Underspin.
They changed my
Ain't that
name
what
and
Tim
everything.
Hawkins calls you, Kevin Underspin?
Yeah.
So, well, we're going to talk about the underspin here in a few minutes, but let's transition here. We've got our Lanier movie review out of the way, courtesy of Kevin.
There you
Hope
go.
you guys get a kick out of that because I know I did. But I like Matt.
Keep it
Kevin
below
rates
the
it 2
thermocline.
underspins down.
Keep it below the thermocline.
That's pretty good. That's
It's
good.
down there with the rest of the dead rotten stuff.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. I like that. So,
Oh boy.
so one of the real though, Kevin was mentioning about the overturn. Oh my gosh, about the turnover, and he was talking about the turnover with the nasty, smelly water. One of the other ways that too that the turnover is actually happening is going to the back of like a pocket and look. And if you see like rotten leaves and, pineapple or
Pineapple.
Pine needles.
I just said pineapple. I literally just said overturned pineapples.
That means SpongeBob came to the surface.
That's some swinger shit.
I was saying pineapples mean a little something different there, buddy.
Oh my God. I cannot believe I was like upside down pineapples. If you see any upside down pineapples,
Fishing the lifestyle. Fishing the lifestyle.
That's them Lanier Life guys that got them stickers on the back of the back of their Jeeps. This is Lanier Life. They also got an upside down pineapple on their dog. Oh God. Anyway,
all right. So we got some leaves.
You got some leaves.
And we got some.
You got some pine needles.
Pine needles.
You got some pine needles, and then you'll also see like sticks and stuff that are like real, like bloated. They're like real waterlogged sticks. Some of them that are light enough will actually just be sitting there in the middle of the pocket, and they'll be floating around. That's a typical sign that it is turning over because of the destratification of the water. That stuff that's on the lake bed, that stuff that is on the lake. I'm tripping over my words. That stuff that is on the lake bed has come up to the surface, but greenish, brownish water. That's about the only way I can describe it. You got a better way of describing the water color?
Yeah, it's kind of like a coffee color.
Yeah, kind of like a coffee color.
Yeah.
It's
like it won't look like the Emerald Coast no more.
No.
No,
this ain't your North Georgia Panama City by no means.
No, it won't look like.
I don't know. So, I've seen chicks on Lanier. They're better to be had. It must be said. Okay, thanks, Tyler. Tyler's being saucy. So,
maybe that's what they was looking at when they tried to call Allatoona the prettiest lake in Georgia.
Yeah, that might be it. Did you know that?
Allatoona the prettiest lake?
Allatoona was ranked by some magazine in New York City that it was the prettiest lake in North Georgia and Georgia.
I'd have to vote Burton on that one.
Hey, yeah, I know. See,
Burton is like beautiful lake, man.
All those Burton chain lakes are good.
Yeah, Burton is like
Seed. All of them down through there.
Those are some of the prettiest lakes in Georgia.
Those are millionaire playhouses too.
Yeah.
If you haven't fished Burton yet, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you right now, there's people's boat docks on Burton that cost more than my house.
Yeah.
Like you can live in the boat dock.
You can go to Lake Burton and it don't even matter if you catch fish or not. It's just like, man, I like being here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like nice.
It's nice up there.
Yeah, it's nice up there.
Oh, look, Chris Stubbs said I still bust out laughing when I hear that about Allatoona. So when the turnover begins and when the turnover really gets hot and heavy, what did the fish do? Explain to us, in your opinion, from your experience, what do the fish do exactly when the turnover gets going real good?
So what I think fish do in the turnover, I actually wrote I think I wrote it last year.
You did.
Thing about the lake turning over. And I talked about.
You need to repost it because it's a really good read. If
you was to take a fish and put it in a completely different water quality, that's basically what Mother Nature's doing. And I kind of used the illustration like if you've ever had an aquarium or you kept aquarium fish, you probably went and bought a fish from pet store and you went and you looked at the fish in the tank and he was just, man, look at that one. He's cool. He's doing stuff. I like him. I want that one when you was a little kid. took the fish home, put him in your tank, kind of dropped him in there to get him acclimated to the temperature, and then let him out, and he went straight to the bottom and laid there for like a day or two. Then he started kind of getting going. So you took that fish from one water quality and put him in something completely different. So you got all these fish that are, you've got some, I think, that will seek out good water and they'll get out of it. They'll get out of the water that's turning over, and they'll go to where either the water's already turned over or they'll go to where the water is not turning over.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got all these fish that's left that can't get out of it. So what do? They just kind of meander around trying to find, hey, where's the good water at? And they end up all over the place, really. If I was going to fish for fish in water that was turning over, I'd probably pick up a crankbait, a spinnerbait, a jerkbait, and I'd go burning down the bank as fast as I could go, trying to hit 5 good ones.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's probably going to be about your bites that you're going to get.
Yeah.
Try to cover as much water as you can. Hopefully you run into something. Really, if you're having to, I know a lot of tournaments, they have boundaries. Like your thing has a boundary, don't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I had to fish that, I think I'd probably go back into the creeks. If the main lake was turning over, I'd go back into the creeks. I'd try to find something that's already turned over.
Mm-hmm.
I think, just like the north end of the lake's going to turn over before the south end of the lake will.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to talk about that.
Also, back in the creeks is going to turn over before the main lake's going to turn over. So, wherever that thermocline's set up first, it's going to start to turn over there first. So like I was saying, if I was to try to target fish in water that was turning over or a certain area of the lake, I would leave the turning water, go back and fish the backs of the creeks.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it was a deal where I could go anywhere on the lake, I'd either go north and try to find some water that's already turned over,
mm-hmm.
or I'd try to go down the lake and I'd try to find some water that it's not turning over yet.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times what you'll find is if you can kind of get to the edge of where that water is turning over and where that water is not turning over, you'll whack on them pretty good in those types of areas.
Yeah.
You can have some phenomenal days doing that.
And I think possibly one of the most overlooked little areas too that you can fish during the heat of the turnover when it's really going good is any kind of back of a creek that has like a freshwater flow into it.
Yes.
Whether it be like a little waterfall or actually have like an actual physical creek is pushing in back in there all year long. Those areas are dynamite. And those areas typically too, where that happening, the water temperature is also already a little bit cooler than what it would be the very next pocket over or out on the main lake. You agree with that?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's Ron Swinford, that's what he was talking about right there, running in slow down. But that's definitely an area where you'll slow down. A question was asked earlier, since we're sitting here talking about this now, in the heat of the turnover. Where do the fish, a question was asked, do the fish go straight to like ditches? What is your opinion on that?
Fish will go, they just really scatter so much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could possibly find them in a ditch. I mean, really.
Yeah.
They'll, of course, going in the fall, I think, depending on what lake you're on, especially if you're on a herring lake, really any lake, your fish are going to start to suspend on bait.
Mm-hmm.
So I know this is kind of getting into a different subject, but to kind of try to answer that, I think you need to kind of talk about this too. So a lot of your fish are going to be already suspended with bait. They're not going to be relating to that brush pile. They're not going to be relating to that point. They're going to be, just following that bait around. Then when that lake turns over, they're gonna kind of be, when the bait starts to move, back in the creeks and the fish follow them. So I think you could potentially have some fish that will be on the bottom in ditches. I mean, I think you could possibly catch some there, but will that be like the main deal? I really don't think that's going to be, there's nothing in a turnover going to be very productive in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Most of me personally, most of my turnover success catching fish is typically power fishing.
Mm-hmm.
So, your spinner baits, your crank baits, your buzz baits, top water plugs, swim baits.
Water.
I cover water. And what I'm really trying to find, what I really, really, really want to find is wolf packs of fish. Fish that have moved up and are really just hunting around and are actively feeding for the most part of the day because they know what's about to happen. They know what's coming. They know winter's coming. So they know they're just going to get ready to be in a feeding frenzy until, the water temperature drops to a certain amount to basically sit here and say, well, the winter bite is here. But that's been most of my success in October and early November when the turnover kind of really starts setting in good, is just put the trolling motor down, run and gun, and cover water. Probably my favorite bait, in all honesty, to throw is like a Spot Sticker Baits mini-me spinner bait because because they seem to want to. So it seems like, and I want you to answer this too. You've got kind of two populations of fish here. And I want Kevin's perspective on this too. And this is just my opinion. You've got a population of fish that will continue to chase and feed on the bigger baits, the bigger bait fish, the bigger herring and stuff like that, the bigger shad. But then you have a population of them that want to feed on that small fry type shad where they can just gorge on millions of them in the back of like a flat in the back of a creek. And they just stay back there all day long. And you can physically see the bait, but they're just gorging on a little bit of bait this big. And I think a mini-me spinner bait has been probably one of my favorite and most successful, consistent bites that I've ever had during the heat of the turnover is for them small bait eaters. What about you? What's your experiences with that?
Yeah, for sure. A spinner bait's definitely a good one. Everybody knows I like throw underspin. When they get in that bait like that and you got like gobs and gobs and gobs and walls of bait just like that, you really need something that kind of stands out from, the millions of bait fish that's there. And for me, an underspin does that really well.
Mm-hmm.
Underspin is the most versatile tool on the boat. I don't care what anybody says.
We'll elaborate on
That's
that.
Versatile.
Why? Why, in your opinion? Because I know you throw the absolute fool out of the thing, whether you want to admit it or not.
You can fish it anywhere. Dude, that thing stays on the boat. If I'm on the water, that thing's up there on the deck somewhere. I promise you it is. Now, I may be rigging it a little different. I may be putting a different plastic on it. But that thing stays on the front of the boat year round.
Yeah.
You can fish it shallow. You can fish it deep. You can just change the plastic. You can put a fluke on there and burn it. You can put a Kitech on there and slow it down. You can make that thing do whatever you need it to do to target whatever you need to target. But when you got all them fish in that bait, a lot of times you can use your forward-facing sonar. And if you can put that bait right there where they're knocking holes in it, you're going to get bit.
Yeah.
They're going to run right through there. Ooh, I like this one. Nail it. 9 times out of 10, you'll catch them if you can put that bait right in the hole of. And it's a forward-facing sonar deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a forward-facing sonar.
But you don't necessarily have to have forward-facing sonar.
It makes it a lot easier.
It makes it a lot easier, but you don't necessarily. That that's the big. That's the big argument right now is forward-facing sonar.
Yeah.
And it's but we're not calling it a fish head.
It's a spot choker. Right on.
It's a spot choker. So
there you go.
A spot choker is arguably the best underspin on the market.
I think so. It's really the only one I throw. I mean, I've thrown a bunch of them over the years, but when I started throwing the spot choker, it was kind of like, this thing's pretty good.
Yeah,
I like it. And then, when Rob started putting different hook sizes in there, and it was like, man, this is the deal right here.
Yeah.
It runs really good. He spent a lot of time getting that thing to run good.
Yeah.
And he takes
I believe he had 8 molds before he got it.
He takes a lot of pride in what he's done with his underspin.
Oh yeah.
He is he's put a lot of work into that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Go back up there just a little bit. We want to answer this question. Just a little bit. We're going to answer that one after this one right here from Lanier Basson. Thank you, Paul. Is it easier to catch largemouth or spots during this time in the backs of creeks? And what would be your main focus, spots or largemouth? Kevin, you can catch the fool out of both. So which one's you gonna go for?
You catch them both back there together, believe it or not.
You will.
Sometimes I think you can change to certain lures to get more bites from largemouths over spots. But both of them will bite the same types of stuff.
Yeah.
I think sometimes the largemouths are key in, and this is an opinion deal, okay? This is an opinion. This is not factual. This is just what I feel works for me. There's times when certain lures seem to draw the largemouths to bite a little better than the spots. Spots will bite anything.
There's mean green balls of hate.
If you throw it in front of the right one that's down there pissed off, he's going to bite. I don't care if you throw a doorknob in front of him.
Yeah.
With the largemouths, that's not always the case. I think they get more keyed in to stuff. And I know a lot of times, we'll have, I mean, like right now, I know where there's plenty of largemouths. We'll pull over there and we'll catch one. And that's the only one that'll bite out of that school the entire day. We'll do the milk run on them, go back, throw different baits at them. They're still there, but we can't get them to bite. One time.
Why do you think that is? Just because of what you're talking about with they get keyed in on such specific things?
I think so. And I think they get, I think sometimes they get trained a little better than the spots do, just because the spot's more aggressive.
Right.
I think the largemouth's kind of a lazy fish. He doesn't want to travel very far.
See, I'm not the only one who believes
or
that.
Do a whole lot of work to get a meal.
Yeah.
He kind of just wants the meal to fall in his mouth. Especially after you go over there and you show him a couple of lures a few times, them things will shut down for the day. So that is definitely, especially the Lanier largemouths. You better go find some fresh ones.
Yeah.
Find some fresh ones.
And the population of largemouth on Lanier is getting, Kevin catches you, seems like every other trip when you're on Lanier. It seems like Larry shows up.
We caught a good one. What was it, 2 days ago? We caught one over 5 like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And what was it? The trip before that was all we caught all day was largemouths.
Yeah.
That was it. It was either those or we had to go deal with the stripers. Stripers are really easy to catch right now. Go throw a top water over hump. You'll catch all of them that you want. Skimmer, walking bait, popping bait, whatever. Go catch those stripers. I'm tired of catching them, man.
Henry Cowan will love to hear that.
Wreck my hooks.
Alex Purse says, does the core lowering the level of the lake affect the thermocline and the turnover?
It's still kind of setting the same place that I've always seen it setting. It's normally about 40-ish
Yeah.
this time of the year. It's normal, and that's south of Browns Bridge. You know, the further up the lake you go, it'll get a little shallower. Further back in the creek you go, it'll get a little shallower. But really, I think the main thing that you have to understand about the thermocline is, regardless of the lake level, that surface temp is still warmer than that lower layer. So as long as that surface is warmer than that lower layer, it's more about of a temperature drop. So as soon as that temperature drops on that surface layer, that's when it's going to mix.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think it's the lake level. I don't think it's got anything to do with that at all.
I don't think it does either. The thing with the lake level coming down, though, is come the winter, it's going to make things fire, especially that ditch bite.
They ain't got nowhere else to be.
Exactly. Exactly.
They ain't going to have anywhere to be but in the ditches.
Exactly.
They let it
the
fill back
ditches
up.
and the timber. That's about all they got to be at.
That's going to be it.
It'll be when it gets that way, it'll be a phenomenal this winter if the lake continues to fall. I personally I would like to see the lake Lanier specifically. I would like to see it get 10 foot below full pool this winter. I really, really, really would. Now I have other reasonings behind that, but
you want to kill off the bait.
Yeah. But I also want some grass to grow come spring. If we don't get no spring rains, I need some grass to grow up there upriver.
There ain't no grass gonna grow over the winter.
I need something. Man, I'm gonna tell you what, when that spring gets going, buckweed, man, it gets going. I like that stuff. So,
like Boomhauer there for a second.
Well, dang old buckwheat, man. Dang old
spring, come on,
buckwheat.
Dang old buckwheat.
That's right. That's right. Someone said I want it 20 foot low. Yeah, and I can remember.
No, you don't.
I can remember. I can remember back in the late 2000, early 2000, like 08, 09, when the lake was down like really far.
We don't have but what, 2 boat ramps?
We won't have but about 2 or 3 boat ramps.
Game over, isn't it?
Do what?
About 18 feet's game over, isn't it?
No, we've got Shoal Creek boat ramp has a road that goes way off into the lake. Oops. Shoal Creek boat ramp has one of the ramps at Shoal Creek. It's actually a road. And it goes way off in there. Sardis has a road that goes off in there. The far left-hand side has a road that goes down in there. I don't know how far down. You know, when they changed Charleston Park years ago and added on to it, I don't know how deep it goes. If Tim Hawkins is watching, he can answer, or anyone, you know, that's that can answer that question. I don't know how far down Charleston Park reaches now, but they extended Charleston Park many years ago. There's specific grass. Someone said there's grass already upriver. Just look out.
It's gotta be Harold.
Harold
said his name would get mentioned tonight. There he is.
It's a specific. Jeremiah, have a good flight, buddy. Hopefully you'll have 100-pound sea monster hooked up tomorrow for sure. So have a good flight, and I appreciate you watching as often as you do. There's a little lake in Macon where I grew up at Lake Tobasofkee. They drop it every 4 years. You swam in that lake?
Yeah, we did.
It's Macon. There's alligators in it.
We did a half Ironman in there. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, we never really talked about you and your Ironman days.
Yeah.
We'll save that for another time.
I'm a long ways from that now. So if anybody's I still swim.
I'm an Iron Man. Let me tell you something.
My wife is now.
She's Iron Woman.
She's tough.
She's Iron Woman. She's an Iron Woman. But give some advice to someone who may not have a lot of confidence when the turnover gets going, because I know all three of us sitting here can say this in agreement. When the turnover is going on, it can, if you let it, it will really spin you out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And it will really make you just like, what the hell do I do? I don't know what to do, you know. And I've been like that before. I'm sure all of us have been. It's like the fish should be here, the fish should be doing. Why in the hell are they not doing what I think they should be doing, what they should be doing? And that's strictly a lot of times based off the turnover of what's going on.
Yeah. Like I said, you know, best advice is to go find water that's not turning over.
Mm-hmm.
Either it's already done turned over, or it's not turned over yet. If you got a fish in water,
without giving too much away, kind of what's your methodology for finding that better water?
Well, for one, you know, everywhere that I have been seeing a thermocline on my graphs, I know it's going to turn over eventually. Where I've not seen a thermocline, you know, that water is going to kind of work its way down the lake until it settles out and all the sediment and stuff settles out, and you know, the fish get used to the new condition. I'll go run down the lake until I see some good water, and you can visually see the water. You can see the color of the water. If you somewhere where the water just smells bad, and you'll smell it, it'll smell bad. You'll visually see the color of that water, and it'll look like a brown, yucky kind of coffee color. Yeah, he's a South End guy. That's got to be Harold right there. And
Probably so.
And I'll just go down the lake until I see the color of the water change, and you'll see a color change. You'll see a clear color change in the water.
Now, is that wind driven at all as well? Like, kind of patchiness, you get a couple strong wind days, it'll move those water plumes around? Or
Take it away, Paul. I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
Oh,
go ahead.
Hey, bring me a beverage while you're at it.
You want
a banquet if you got it.
I don't have one.
Oh Lord. Well,
so I wouldn't really say it's wind driven. Can
it be?
No, I'm good. I got a drink right here.
Go ahead.
I'm good. I wouldn't say it's wind driven. It's more of a temperature driven when that water starts to mix. Top layer cools down enough to sink into the bottom layer. So you got to go find water that's either not doing that yet, and like I said, it's going to work its way.
It has done.
Either it has done and is already done, or it hasn't done yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was, I guess, when we were talking about trying to find good water. I know, like, when I think of the Great Lakes, there's a lot of temp up there, and those are very wind-driven fisheries, and so you can have these huge plumes of either cold or warm water moving around based on kind of wind conditions and weather conditions. And I was kind of wondering if we maybe had a baby version of that. That you guys had seen kind of from day to day. You get a big weather front move through, and it might change things for you.
I had never been up to those lakes, so I can't really speak for them lakes.
You got to go, man.
I want to go. I want to go up there on a smallmouth trip.
Got to do it. It's amazing.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun to go up there. I see a lot of people's stuff where they've been up there. It's like, man, all they catch up there is 5-pound smallmouths. That'd be a fun day.
You want to talk mind-blowing? I chartered a guy up there, and I asked him what it took to win a club tournament. He goes, oh, well, weights are down. I suppose 27, 26.
Dang.
My brain melted.
That's a lot of weight.
He's like, yeah. I was like, wait. So you mean? He's like, oh yeah. It used to be like 30. I was like, you kidding me?
But when you talk about tournament fishing, though, you should consider everybody that's fishing in the tournament, not just the hammers. Of course, your hammers are going to catch big bags.
Going to get theirs, but I mean, you got to have some hellacious average size to be getting that.
Yeah. So really, I would want to look at like everybody's weights all the way down to like top 25 or so on a big tournament, just to see if it's.
We got him tilted out already.
Done dove off into something else.
Gainesville Marina.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, hell, that's a yes.
I mean, Kevin's fishing.
Now, what do you consider
Gainesville Marina a time or two?
I know. For me, during turnover,
we go fish up that river.
I always think of it as a time where you're kind of on the grind a lot. What do you lean on in terms of techniques that you really like? Do you just kind of run home to your confidence, or do you kind of have a few specific things that maybe come into play that are specific to the turnover time of year?
During turnover?
Yeah.
Lakes actively turning over. Yeah, we kind of was talking about that earlier. Crankbait, spinnerbait, jerkbait, burning down the bank, burning wherever.
Now, are you looking with the crankbait specifically? Are you looking to imitate bait fish, or like when do the craws start to come into play as we transition into the fall?
I think they could come into play anytime, really. You'll have populations of fish throughout the year, even in the summer, man. We caught some that was on herring spitting up crawfish.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't think that they just, I would definitely say during moon phases, try to focus on crawfish type patterns. But the fish that you'll have a population of fish too that'll probably get up on some rock. Anything that gets on some rock, I think would be a potential crawfish pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, because that's just where they hang out.
Do the rivers that feed Lanier get turned over? Typically, like the river, both river arms. So typically, it's kind of like this. The Chestatee kind of goes first. Why does the Chestatee goes first? It doesn't have the same amount of volume of water as the Chattahoochee does. Then the Chattahoochee will start. Oh my gosh, I got hiccups. Then the Chattahoochee will kind of start turning over, and then it will kind of work its way down. But turnovers always start up, and they always work their ways down. And I have hiccups, and I wish I could get rid of them right now.
Or back in creeks.
Yes.
Back in creeks.
Crawfish is all year. Yes, they are. But the fall, that last major moon phase that we have with the water temperature still in like the 60s is like a really major period for the crawfish.
Yeah, I think you'll have a fall crawl spawn too.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have a crawfish spawn in the fall. I think the water temps stay in that range that they'll spawn in long enough for them to have a fall spawn.
And that's what I mean by that last major moon phase. Yeah.
Yes. But kind of back to what Paul was asking a while ago. You really got to figure out what group of fish you're fishing for. At any given time, you could have a group of fish on bluegill. You could have a group of fish on herring. Like Ryan was talking about earlier, you'll have some groups of fish move back into pockets on small bait fish. Whichever area of the lake you're in, you really got to figure out what your fish are doing in that area and use a bait to imitate what they're eating. Hopefully that can. I wanted to go back and finish that one, Paul.
Like it. So that's part of your decision making then, as you're kind of planning for a day on the water, is to kind of target like the various kind of forage bases then. And do you feel like that gives you a little more consistency during this time of year?
This time of year, the main deal for fall fishing for me is going to be targeting fish that are keying in on bait fish. That's going to be my main deal throughout the fall. Will I try the stuff? Yeah. Will you have some hard days? Yeah. So, you really gotta look at what, like I said, the different groups of fish and try to key in on what they're eating. But my main deal in the fall is to look for fish feeding on bait fish.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's where my confidence lies. You hear about the fall feed, and basically that's the migration of fish moving back into pockets, back into creeks, and fish are going to go with them. So
we need an update on the Brave score, by the way, if someone will give it to us.
It is. I just looked.
Oh, did you?
Give me a second. Come on, Google. You can do it. It was 7-1 in favor of the Braves last time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Where that at? Where that been?
You're right.
Where that been? I don't know where that been.
A win's a win.
I'm going to pick on Farmer here. He says bass are optimistic feeders. So bass are lucky to feed, is what Farmer is saying.
I think he means opportunistic.
I gotta give Farmer hell. Bass are opportunistic feeders. They will eat a crawfish that's out in the open and not hidden as fast as they will eat a shad that's optimistic. I hope the bullpen doesn't blow. Yeah, I'm gonna give Farmer hell because he can't spell. Look at him with that big old damn 9-pound lip over there that he's got in his hand from Notley, I think's where it's from. Farmer, he's a good dude. He stepped up and he's working 2 days in a row this week. He's stepping up for some guy. He's a good guy. He keeps our lights on. He don't keep your lights on. You don't live on Amcalola. Who you pay your power bill to? Georgia Power?
Yeah, Georgia Power.
So Tyler Meanix, there you go, buddy.
Amen, Framer.
Amen, Framer.
Them optimistic bass.
them optimistic feeders. Yeah, I might eat today. I might not. I don't know. It all depends. Whatever I feel like.
The bait fish and the bait bucket is half full or half empty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're very optimistic in the fall and during the turnover. Very much optimistic.
Yeah, they optimistically don't go where you want them to go or where they should be. I want to touch on this. I want to definitely touch on this. In terms of the turnover. Like we said a while ago, spinning out is something that I think all three of us have done here. We've spun out before during the middle of the turnover. I can tell you this from my own experience. On a more recent time that I spun out during the turnover about 3 years ago, I didn't know what the hell to do, and I didn't know what exactly I should be doing, and it's easier said than done, but there's a period for me personally, and if you guys watching want to take on to this, by all means, if it'll help you, do it. I will fish on a little bit more instinct. So much more than, what the fish should be doing. And what I mean by instinct is, here I go into a pocket. And I go into the pocket and I see bait on the surface. Well, as you said earlier, typically the fall, it's all surrounded, everything revolves around the bait fish for the most part.
Right.
I will fish on instinct a little bit more than I will anything, and I'll just kind of fish. Now, whether that's picking up a spinnerbait and just going fishing, or dragging a jig around, or on point, or a worm, or throwing a crankbait, going down the bank, I'll kind of fish on instinct a little bit more. And it seems like if I like clear the mechanism, to quote For the Love of the Game, if I clear the mechanism and just fish, seem to have a little bit more success catching fish during the turnover than I will trying to say, all right, the fish should be doing X. Why are they not doing X? Have you ever had any moments like that where it's just like clear the mechanism and say, I'm just going to go hunt and I'm just going to fish and I'm just going to do, I'm just going to keep a bait wet?
Well, I think that's probably, if you're fishing in water that's turning over, that's probably about your best bet to do is keep a bait wet.
Yeah.
Because it gets so scattered. One thing I would do, they're very hard to pattern that time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Very hard to pattern when that lake turns over because, they get on everything and they get on nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I would try to, maybe if it was a little bit warmer day, maybe I would try to go crank some rock or something.
Mm-hmm.
Go crank rock. If it was a cooler day, and you're not necessarily just that particular day, but maybe that trend, like the 3 days before were just cooler days.
Mm-hmm.
Go crank rock. Go just try, try to put a pattern together, but don't die with it. Stay on the move. Try different things because it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be a hard time to fish. It's gonna be tough.
Oh, my pretty pink shirt. I want both of y'all to answer this too, and I'm gonna answer it too because this is a question right here. I think it might be. I don't know who it might be. It might be Dane Hunter. It might be Harold Grizzle. I don't know. When are you not in a pocket? I'll answer first. I know when I'm not going to be in a pocket. When I'm not going to be in a pocket, I'm going to typically be hunting if it's windy day. I'm going to be fishing some points going in the mouths of creeks and major creek arms, rocky points. And I'll be throwing things like spinner baits and jerk baits and crank baits. And may even drag a little bit of worm if I can keep contact with the bottom. What about you, Kevin? And what about you, Paul? What do y'all do kind of, when you don't go into a pocket in the fall?
Water's turned over or it's turning over or?
Well, how about you just answer it both of the water's turning over and then the water has turned over.
Okay. Man, I'm really gonna be burning water.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's turning over, I'm gonna be wide open, fast as I can go. Crank, spinner bait, jerk bait. I'm gonna be hauling. Like I said, I'll points, rock, stuff like that. In a pocket, I'd hit every lay down in the pocket the same way I'd hit the rock stuff. Just see if I can catch one off that tree. See if I can catch one off that big log laying in the water. Just wherever. Just hit every piece of cover there. See if one's sitting there. Just cover water. Prior to the lake turning over. Yeah, I'd be around the mouths of pockets.
Mm-hmm.
Mouths of creeks.
Yeah. What about you, Paul?
I think it's been so long since I've got to fish a lot during turnover. I think for me, I'd try to hold on to that summer bite probably a little too long. I like to go out and bomb big top water and really try to take a chance on a big fish, even if it's only going to be 1 or 2 bites in a day. And then something I learned from you, man, just start running bank and throwing like a whopper plopper or a buzz bait, something, and just crank through as much water as I can. And just hope to play the numbers game. You run enough, you're going to put it in front of one.
There you go.
Eventually you put it in front of the right one.
You kind of got to take the mentality, and you'll have days where it will happen.
Think about KVD.
Yeah. He spent his career looking for 5. And it's cover water. The best advice that I personally can give you, and Kevin give his advice as well on this, and Paul too. Try to just if you're say I'll answer this from a standpoint of a tournament aspect and a non-tournament aspect, because I know all of us kind of do them all here. If you're a tournament fisherman and that's where you kind of your bread and butter is, try to go just fish for 5 and try to find the right 5. If you're fun fishing and you just want to go out there for the enjoyment and trying to catch some fish, I mean, there's an array of things that you can do, because you may find fish stacked up somewhere that you wouldn't expect really for them to be stacked up. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And go catch them. Go catch them. But, you know, go ahead.
Exactly the point I was about to bring up on the screen right there.
Hero or
zero. You have to be kind of ready for either one.
Mm-hmm.
And it can change real quick. And so you just have to stay ready and kind of be ready to grind and keep your head in the game, and you can profit greatly.
Yeah, you can. What are some things, Kevin, that you do to, like, we got a question there up there that says, how long does the turnover generally last? That can depend. It can really depend upon the weather.
Yeah.
You know, generally when a turnover kind of starts, it's anywhere from it takes generally about 4 to 6 weeks roughly to get totally there. I have seen it a little bit quicker. I'm sure you probably have too. If you get in a moving water situation, like way up a river arm, it'll generally happen a little bit quicker. But main body of water, it seems like it's typically somewhere in the 4 to 6 week range that it takes to get totally flipped. Have you experienced any of that?
Are we talking about the entire lake being completely done, or a certain area of the lake?
Well, let's talk certain area and then the whole lake.
The entire lake, it really depends on how cold it gets. If it gets cold enough for the entire lake to flip, and stays cold enough, then, you know, I would say probably within a month and a half, 2 months for the entire lake to be done. But then again, it you know, for the entire lake, it depends on. So if it gets cold enough to flip up the lake, well, down the lake may not have turned over yet. And then your temps go back up and it gets warm again. Well, then it's going to kind of prolong the other end of the lake flipping.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you really have to think about the top layer, the temperature of that top layer dropping below the temperature of the bottom layer.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's really your number one thing that drives the turnover is that top temperature drops lower than the bottom and it flips. And like I was saying, it really depends on your weather as to the entire lake getting completely done. Now, a particular area of the lake turning over and being done, I would say 4 weeks, maybe about 4 weeks before it starts to get better as far as fishing conditions go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I would say
ahead.
this is one. A lot of people jump on it too early. The river changing color. The tailwater below Buford will change. I mean, late August.
Yeah, they've been talking about that.
Yeah, it gets funky quick, and that's not a sign that turnover is starting. However, usually about mid-December, you'll wake up one day, you'll drive over the dam, and baby, she's gin clear again, perfect. And it's like flicking a switch. And that's, to me, I think that's how you kind of know it's over. You start getting that clean water coming through the dam again.
Yeah.
I think, what is it? Historically, probably in October, beginning of November for the south end.
Mm-hmm.
It's been so warm here these last few years, though.
Yeah,
Crazy.
it seemed like about what was it 2020? I guess 2020.
We were top water in December.
Yeah, I mean we was out there and daggone New Year's Day and throwing Seville's and shit and catching schooling, or we was catching stripers mixed in with spots in the backs of creeks on Seville's, and it was epic pandemonium, and that was fun. But we had that little stretch there around Christmas leading up to that, where the air temperatures had got back up into the 70s, and it was warm. I mean, we were going to the lake with blue jeans and a hoodie on. You know, we weren't dressed up like we normally are in the winter.
Yeah.
Those years are far. Well, I say years. Those days are fewer and far between. But I think our weather systems just seem to change, and we seem to be on this. And I'm not no conspiracy theorist, but it seems like the weather the past several years has just generally been warmer. I asked Kevin this question, and Paul this question too. When's the last time we saw the lake temperature get below 50 on Lanier specifically? Exactly. So you had to pause and go, that's my point. It used to be when I started fishing, it was a given by the end of December. We have up temperatures in the upper to mid 40s. And that's been a factor for the bait fish kills. We ain't really had we have bait die every winter. That's a given. I know you've probably seen it. We have bait die every winter, but we don't see bait die like it used to, where we would have these areas where it was just spoon mafia, and it was just sit over a road bed and just spoon jack them all day long, and you didn't have to go really nowhere else. When's the last time we really had that?
I don't know.
It's been a minute. Sure. We had that deep freeze last Christmas. Yeah, but that wasn't long enough.
Yeah.
We need sustained.
No, that didn't really get the water temp. I think water temps was around 50 then.
Yeah. It was like 55 before that deep freeze, and it had dropped about 5 degrees. But it still didn't.
Was close.
Yeah.
To going into the upper 40s.
Yeah.
But at least now this is according to my graphs.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, and all of our graphs are. Kevin's made a point to say, I want you to tell that point about everybody's graphs when you talk about, you go out with people on their boats. I want my graphs to look like your graphs. They may have been on a trip with you already.
About the settings and stuff.
Yeah.
It just seems like the settings are never the same.
Yeah.
It's never the same.
That's an interesting theory.
It's always something a little different. And I don't know why that is.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'll set my contrast to a certain thing, and then I'll set my sensitivity to a certain thing, and somebody will have the same exact graph, same setup, and I'll get on their boat and I'll be like, that one don't look like mine, or I'll adjust it a little bit to get them a better picture or whatever. But the settings vary from graph to graph.
Yeah,
that's something.
That's it. Paul, what do you run?
Power supply, whatever.
Bird for me.
You run a bird.
Wiring. I don't know what is it that's different about it. They made the same model graph.
This is a serious question about the graphs. Do you think placement of the transducer can have an effect on that too, on your boat?
It's in the water.
Right, but do you think higher or lower can change it?
Well, I mean, on a bass boat, your transducer's not really going to be below a foot under the water, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I think you might get it a little more interference if it's close to something electrical, or if your wires are close to something electrical, or you ran your wires on top of your trolling motor wires or whatever,
Yeah. you've always been a proponent to me. I mean, you've talked about it. You've always been a big proponent to me about clean power.
Yeah.
You know, having clean power is the most important. The reason why we're kind of talking about this here towards the end of the show here is, you know, having good electronics in the fall and in the winter is definitely gives you a leg up on some people. Being able to see things, utilizing your side scan during the turnover and stuff can help you whether or not you have a real crappy day or you have a good day. You agree or disagree with that?
I agree with that. I mean, anytime. I mean, you got to think we're talking about power fishing and covering a lot of water. So the other thing about that is, you know, even when you're forward facing sonar, you're not going to cover the amount of water with forward facing sonar that you're going to cover sitting in your console at your graph at your console driving your boat. You can cover so much more water graphing, and if you can find something productive with your graphs, great. You're still covering more water with that if you understand what you're looking at on your, you know, it helps you cover more water. Yeah.
Well, even though we're covering water, though, now with the technology that we have, if you have it on your boat, you really don't have much of an excuse, really, if you learn to utilize it. You can still cover water and power fish, but fish productive areas. You don't want to go down a bank or something like that and be fishing a place and there not be a lick of bait there.
Yeah, use your units at your console. Drive with your big motor and find something, and then fish for something rather than to just. Well, this over here looks good. I think I'm gonna go over here. And I mean, you like I said, you go over and burn down the bank and catch fish.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, by all means, anytime you can use your graphs and find stuff, you definitely want to do that to be more productive.
Yeah. Alex has a underspin question for you, Kevin. Do you prefer the hologram blade on the spot choker or the regular blade?
Depends.
Which blade? So let's break it down like this, because you were kind of the well, I'll call you like what it is. You're kind of the underspin king around here. You kind of the underspin key. How many different versions of like blade combination of the spot choker do you have? Do you have more?
So I've got gold blades, I've got silver blades, and I've got the silver hologram, gold hologram. I've got all the different blades. I'm not really one, you know, I mean, I don't want, you know, a purple underspin. I want something to imitate a bait fish. That's what I'm always doing with that, imitating a bait fish. So, like, for example, silverback or the pearls, hey, that kind of gets me on colors. But there are times, say, for example, herring spawn, gold blade.
Really?
Gold blade.
Why? Do you know
why? Because, you know, the herring are kind of that kind of color, and the gold blade will sometimes get you more bites during the herring spawn. If it's a really, really bright bluebird sky day, I like the hologram blade. If it's wintertime, ditch bite, the silver blades are good. I think the hologram blade, when you're fishing it up in the water column, I think it throws out a little bit more flash. In the wintertime, you know, fish are deep. They don't have a lot of color to them. So I think that silver blade then will do pretty good.
Well, that's an interesting perspective on it, because I don't really put a whole lot of them. I throw a silver blade for the most part, but
yeah, and I mean, you'll get bites on that too.
Yeah, to me, it's more like what you said earlier. To me, it's more about the piece of plastic that you got. What kind of piece of plastic do they want? Do they want like a Kitech type swimming action plastic on the back, or do they just want something like a baby fluke style or a fluke junior style bait on the back? And sometimes even an instance where, I've seen where they want a full, and I know you probably throw it sometimes too, a full size fluke even threaded on there.
I very rarely throw that. I don't. I
You don't ever really throw that?
Fluke. It's always a small. I'm always throwing a small. Maybe a 3-3 Kitech. That's about as big as I'll go on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a baby fluke.
Yeah. And you make your own flukes for those of you who may or may not know, but
yeah, I use mine. A lot of companies that make them, they cram them in the packs and they don't run good. You got to boil them. Not saying you can't use them, but you better boil them first and make sure you get all the bends out of it where the bait will run right. Not trying to run anybody's baits down, but if you get baits and they're bent up in the packaging, they're not going to run right. Sorry, they're not going to do right.
Mm-hmm.
But you can boil them and then lay them out nice and straight on something, and they'll kind of reshape them, take their original shape of the mold that they come out of, put them back in there nice and straight, and you can use them. Kitechs come in a clamshell, so those are pretty solid as to not get damaged or bent up in the packaging. But as far as baits on an underspin, dude, there is so much you can do. I mean, you can put everything from a twin tail grub on it to a fluke to a Kitech and there's just so much stuff you can put on there.
Mm-hmm.
That bait really is probably the most versatile bait that you can throw. I mean, you can throw it over brush, you can throw it up shallow, you can throw it on rock. You can kind of fish it through brush, but you got to be careful to not get it hung up.
Mm-hmm.
You will get it hung up. Can fish it on the surface. I mean, that's like to cover the entire water column bait.
So Jonathan Farmer there, he has a question. He says, what do you do if you are getting a lot of bites on the blade? What changes will you make?
So sometimes are they hitting the blade? So think about it this way. Even when you got like itty bitty bait fish, that blade will imitate them itty bitty bait fish and it'll draw the fish to your lure. The biggest thing, sometimes you might have to size down a little bit on your even on that baby fluke. That's already a little itty bitty teeny tiny bait.
How long is it?
3 1/4, 3 inches.
Okay.
Somewhere around in there. But they make smaller stuff that you can put on there. And Rob makes that underspin. It's got a 2/0 hook in it. You can throw some small baits on there.
Mm-hmm.
So I would size it down if they're hitting the blade. If they're hitting the blade, they're probably keyed in on smaller forage. They're probably keyed in on a smaller bait fish. So,
okay. Well, there you go, Farmer. Maybe that'll answer your question. So we're still giving. Oh, look at that 10-1.
You could change the color too.
Another one.
Say for example, white is a big color.
It is.
White is a big color. You say if you were throwing like a pearl or whatever, and they were hitting the blade, you kept missing them. Maybe go to like a natural color, maybe to like a pro blue kind of color.
Like an albino?
Yeah, maybe an albino pro blue kind of color. Or that one that I gave you the other day that you liked.
Mm-hmm.
That one's money, man. That thing, a lot of times when they won't eat the pearls or the sight kind of colors, as I call them,
mm-hmm.
The more natural stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Get them to eat that a little better.
Yeah. Well, we're getting down here toward the end of this thing, and you got a trip tomorrow.
Hartwell.
You gotta go to Hartwell, so we're gonna get ready to let Kevin get out of here because he lives all the way over in Banks County. But
down with them good folks.
Yeah. So a lot of information in this episode. I hope you guys got a lot of it. We appreciate all you guys watching. We had a lot of viewership, it looked like, tonight. So I hope we answered as much as we could about thermocline turnover kind of stuff, and if we could probably sit here and Kurt Weehunt and old Dodger boy over there.
If it works for him,
that's right. But well, we got a lot of information. Come back and go back and watch this one again. Kevin, we appreciate you coming out here and sharing your information. Always a pleasure. And you like to come on here and talk, so it's always fun to have you on here.
Hey, Kevin.
Go ahead.
If people want to book a trip with you, take a ride, catch some fish, learn their electronics, who do they call?
Lipstick or fishing.
You got a website, phone number?
Yeah.
TikTok, Facebook, Instagram?
678-459-8419. Website is lipstickerfishing.com. Of course, I'm on Facebook. You can message me. I got a page, Lipsticker Fishing. I got a page on Facebook, so you go check that out and follow me, or whatever.
If I leave a note under your wiper at Van's Tavern, will that work?
Hey, so somebody been leaving notes on my truck. I know.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that they say that they love you.
I got a buddy. He wrote one and said, "Call me, I'm pregnant." I know who it was. He knows who he was if he's watching.
Oh Lord,
it's Matt Haynes.
That's a shocker.
It's Matt Haynes. Y'all know Matt Haynes too.
Oh yeah,
we do.
Oh yeah, we do.
He's a good dude.
Oh yeah. Well, I know you're pretty booked out right now too. So
yeah, I think till about the second week of October. So
well, that's good. That should be that is a testament to his abilities and his abilities as a guide. That you're booked out already till to second week in October now, with a couple of weeks in between there. So, and you pretty much will run a trip any day.
Yeah,
it don't matter if it's Saturday or Sunday either. You'll run a trip.
We'll fish a tournament during the poker run too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's funny.
Boy.
Well, Kevin, we appreciate you coming on. We'll have you back on again, of course. Gotta ask that question right there. How's the big cat hunting going?
Yeah, so I went up there. My plan was to catch another one. I had a guy that had a tank that we was going to put it in. Ain't nobody got certified scales anywhere around that place.
Right.
Probably why the record ain't been broke.
Probably.
But I had a guy that was going to put it in a tank, and we were going to call DNR and hold it in that tank till they got there. And I went up there on an off day, and I kept that day as an off day to go up there and specifically try to do that. And I hooked one and straightened the hook. And after that happened, it was like every one of them fish that was in those timbers just went right out into the channel. Of course, they stayed above the thermocline, though.
Yeah.
But they just scattered and just
dissipated.
Yeah, I couldn't never get back on them. Couldn't find them.
Yeah.
I came back, checked later on, and they didn't set back up like they were. I couldn't find them. So
easy come, easy go.
The hunt continues. Maybe
all you can do is say, "Well, shit."
Hey, I got a lot of trips up there over the next 2 weeks. So if I do it again, if I see them, I'm gonna call that guy. I'm gonna put it in his tank.
There's a
and we're gonna call about it.
There's a rather large tournament that's gonna be happening on September 30th on Hartwell. That red fin sunglasses tournament or whatever it's called.
Yeah, there's that one. There's, I think Bass Nation's got something going on with high school there. I think, of course,
they're at Clark Hill this weekend. One of the high school teams is at, or one of the high school trails is at Clark Hill this weekend.
Is it?
So,
They got a lot of stuff going on at Hartwell this coming up into the end of September through October. I think they got the super tournament up there too.
yeah.
I think I got a couple of guys doing that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's 2 hours, so we had to fit that last little question in there because that big old blue cat that you caught was very, very, very impressive. So, listen, guys, we appreciate you watching. We, as always, we appreciate you guys' support. I'll be here at the store again tomorrow. Y'all come see me. I'm very heartbroken that no one come and seen me on Wednesday. Or come and wish me a happy birthday. What you got up there? That's Harold.
Harold,
for sure.
we know who you are. It don't matter if you're a Facebook user. I don't have any money for you to borrow.
That's for sure. That's for sure. So, Kevin, we appreciate you coming on as always. Paul, appreciate you coming in and running the board and helping do that. Danny and Josh and the Real American Road Trip crew, they're still up in Michigan, and they'll be gone for a little while longer. I stayed behind on this one. I'll be going to the next one for the show. So make sure you catch the Real American Road Trip on Monday nights at 9 on Waypoint TV on the app. And then if you got Pluto TV or a smart TV, you can download the app there as well, and you can watch the Real American Road Trip. And we appreciate all you guys' support. We love you. Appreciate you. Thank you for all your support. And with that being said, I appreciate the happy birthday wishes again.
Old man.
I'm 32 now, so I'm still young. I'm trying to stay young, but we appreciate you guys as always. Don't forget about our YouTube membership. Got some good stuff on there. I put out a fishing report today. So I'll be having some more stuff, of course, obviously coming out, but I don't know, Kurt, if it's on Plex. I don't know. I have Plex as well, Kurt, so I'll have to go home and check that out and see if you can get it. So we'll check that out. So, but I know you can watch it on the Waypoint TV app. It's really easy to get a hold of. You can pull it up on your computer too. So, guys, we appreciate you again. Thanks for watching, and we'll see what we got next week. I've got a real special guest that's going to be coming on real soon, and Kevin knows him, and he's one of my best friends in the whole wide world. And he fishes different. He fishes real different. Some of you guys may know him. Some of you guys may not. Todd Burke. He's going to come on. He agreed to come on here soon. Dude fishes year-round without a lick of electronics.
Check.
He does not own a graph.
Let's go.
So so for all you guys who are anti-electronic, me and Todd give each other hell all the time, but me and Todd are really, really good friends. He's one of the few people that I share like real deep information with in terms of tournament fishing. Me and him have a little bit of a thing going on there. Go ahead.
You want my input on the electronics?
Yeah, go ahead.
Argument?
Go ahead.
If you ban anything, draw the line in the sand. We've come as far as we're going to go, and we're not going to cross that line. We'll never be any better than what we are right now.
Right.
We'll never make any more advances in anything.
You don't think so?
To do anything. No, that's what everybody's arguing about, right? Forward-facing sonar.
Everybody seems to be all arguing about whether or not forward-facing sonar is a moral thing or not, which I think is utterly ridiculous. But
you know what I'm saying?
It's coming from a guy like me who didn't have it and then got it.
It's technology.
Yeah.
You adapt. It's not going to win every single thing. There's times when it's going to win. There's times when it ain't going to win. There's times when you'll sit there on a group of fish and spend too much time on them because of it.
Yeah.
Bottom line is to learn what your fish are doing and what you need to do to target those fish. If you need to go out there and use forward-facing sonar, then do that. If you need to go over there and flip a jig or flip a creature bait in a lay down, then go do that.
Right.
Whatever it is. There'll be times when one will beat the other one.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
And you have to learn when those times are.
Yep. That's gospel.
There you go.
That's gospel right there, guys. So,
but as far as having a technology that's, you know, like I said, I mean, you basically just draw the line and just go ahead and say we're never going to be any better with our technology than we are right now. This is as far as we're going to go. This is as close as we're going to get to that line. We're done with making any kind of advances.
Yeah.
Fishing has come as far as it's going to go as far as graphs and technology goes.
Okay.
We're done.
Well, I like that opinion.
Get what I'm saying?
Oh, I like that opinion. Yeah, I like that opinion. I'm sure some of the other people of you that are still watching probably agree with that opinion as well. Some probably disagree.
Probably so.
But, you know.
It's just my opinion.
Well, it'll be fun. It'll be fun here coming up here in the next week. I do not know if it's going to be next week. I don't know. I'm going to have to talk to him, but it could be next week. It could be here a little bit later on. But my buddy Todd Burke will be here. And like I said, he's the real horny toad king. How about that? He's the real horny toad king, but he doesn't use a lick of electronics. So, you know, but he's going to be here. He's very opinionated. He's a Yankee for all you guys who are Yankees that are watching.
A Yankee.
He's a Yankee. But he's a real good guy. And, I called him up last week. I said, I need you to just come be on the show one time. Nah, yeah, I guess I'll do it. You know, that's how he talks. So he's from way up north. So, but it's going to be fun, guys. We appreciate you. Y'all have a good weekend. Stay safe. It's going to be fantastic weather to go fishing this weekend. Get out there on the water and come see me tomorrow if you get some time. I'll be here at the store from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So y'all be good. Stay safe. Appreciate your viewership, and we will see you guys later. Peace out.
Good night, everybody.